Hello and welcome to our 83rd episode of The Little Inside. My name is, shockingly, still Tobi. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about benefiting others. So let's get started right after the intro. Now, sometimes I hear some people talk about benefiting other beings or even benefiting all living beings. So there's these kind of ideal states that some people cultivate on their path and like cultivating, for example, this vast sense of compassion that may I reach enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings and so forth. And we might recite that in some Buddhist schools. We're reciting these kind of prayers. May I reach enlightenment for the sake of all living beings. May I free all living beings from suffering and so forth. So this time I've decided to kind of have a look at this idea and how many people actually deal with that in their practical life and what they make out of these profound statements, such as may I reach enlightenment for the well-being of all. Now, my first question would actually be, well, who is it that wants to benefit other beings? In other words, what kind of attitude is behind the wish that we might express there? And I found that it's quite tricky, actually. For example, it might be an attitude of people-pleasing that's behind that. So you might come from the psychological makeup of a people-pleaser, and in your life you have learned that you have to please others so you get their affection and love. And then you encounter profound teachings such as may I reach enlightenment for the well-being of all, and they deeply resonate with you, and you don't even know really why they resonate with you, but they somehow do. And so you set out on that path, enthusiastic and full of happiness and joy, and I'm on the path to enlightenment, to free all living beings from their own suffering, and I will do so by freeing myself from my own suffering. And you're kind of on that cloud and you're moving along on that path feeling really, really good, but you miss the very important point here, that it feeds into the attitude of people-pleasing. For example, yes, that might be one attitude that we miss because it's really sneaky, it's really subtle, it comes in through the back door. Maybe another attitude, maybe you've been kind of disappointed by others a lot, and you now feel that you have to save them, or you maybe don't like them, you don't like other people, and you feel like, oh, they're all screwed up and they're all deluded and angry, and so I'm setting out on the path to kind of set them straight and help them. And it can have that kind of flavor. It can take on many, many faces. So I think it's really important to ask ourselves, well, rather than just going for, okay, I'm going to save all living beings or I'm going to benefit another being, ask yourself, who is at the root of that statement? Who wants to go out there and benefit another person, right? The next question then, logically, would be then, why? And this who and why question, they often come together or they reveal each other. So if you ask, why do I want to benefit another being? What's at the root of that? What kind of assumption about the other being is at the root of that idea that I must go out there and benefit another being? What kind of assumption is at the root? It might be the assumption, or it might even be conceit. It might be the feeling that I am so much better off. I'm a much better person than this other poor, deluded, unfortunate being there, and then so therefore I might help that being, and it comes from that sort of pity or even conceit, feeling better, or seeing that the other person is actually worse than you, and then you have this. Sometimes people express that in an argument, in a fight. You have a couple maybe engaged in a fight, and then the wife says to the husband, just listen to me, be quiet, shut up and listen to me, I'm trying to tell you something. And the husband then, all spiritual, all trying to benefit her, going like, shh, it's okay, honey, you can calm down, I totally understand you and I love you, everything is fine, and only makes the wife more furious. Why? Because it's not genuine, it's not sincere, it's not honest, it's an act, it's a mask. That's why I always ask, like, who is trying to benefit other beings? What kind of act is going on there in our mind? Like, do I actually seriously believe that I can save all living beings from suffering? First of all, do I actually seriously believe that about myself? That means probably that I'm having great issues with seeing myself as incredibly grand, so that I actually am in the position of really liberating all living beings from their suffering. Another point is actually going around liberating others from their suffering. How would that work? How would I actually liberate another being from their suffering? Let's say I go to you today and you're having a great time hanging out with your friends, and I assume that you are suffering. And so I approach you and I say, dear friend, let me liberate you from your suffering. Or I'm doing something really, really that I consider very skillful and very sneaky, and I say, hey, there's a Buddhist center down the alleyway. Would you like to come together with me? And I can introduce you to some meditation. And I'm doing all these like sneaky little tricks to get you into the Buddhist center, so that you can experience some benefit and you can do some meditation. And I'm kind of luring you into that. In that moment, I would ask myself, like, seriously, what am I doing here? First of all, are you my business? Is your path my business? Oh, in my opinion, clearly no. You're not my business. You're your own business. You need to learn to take care of yourself, right? And so do I. I have to take care of myself. I can liberate myself from my own suffering. And very often, doesn't it reveal suffering that when we see other people and we see their own suffering, and then we start to suffer their suffering? Oh, poor other people. I'm feeling so miserable because everyone is stuck in their suffering. Like, you have to see in that moment, you are suffering right now. You are suffering the entire world around you the way it is that people suffer around you. And you're suffering the fact that people suffer. And so therefore you set out on this heroic journey to free everyone else from suffering. But it has to start. There's nothing wrong with that. It's with that wish as such, I would say, like going out there, reaching liberation or freedom from suffering for the sake of all living beings. But here you see it's the other way around. I want to reach liberation from suffering and stress and misery, so that my being is the contribution to this world, that my presence is what is healing to others, that my presence is what brings peace into the room as I enter there. Not coming from that idea that even though I myself am not at peace and I myself am imbalanced and unhappy, I'm trying to somehow fix the entire world. And many people, they practice with that kind of understanding. I certainly did when I first entered the path. I was like, oh, I have to now see every living being, and every living being could have been my mother in my past life, and therefore I need to pay back all the kindness, and I need to be very, very nice to them, and I need to protect them and nurture them, and completely forgetting myself in that whole game. But rather than that, rather than actually doing some serious work that would benefit myself and others, wasting all my time with these high-minded ideals, that were all about others, but had nothing to do with myself. So I would really caution against this kind of development where we are externalizing our own suffering, projecting it onto others, then trying to fix the misery that we make up in our own head and perceive in our own minds. Rather than that, it would be about seeing yourself first, seeing the misery that we create, and then learning to let go of that misery in such a way we could actually benefit others by liberating them from our own suffering, from our own problems. The root of the practice is by understanding that we suffer, by seeing that very, very clearly, by understanding or by comprehending, directly realizing that we are continuously looking for something. That is the root. It's very much at the root of suffering. We're constantly busy mentally and physically trying to somehow get somewhere or push something away, get rid of something, mentally constantly restless. So we don't really even know what it means not to suffer. We have no contrast because we're constantly immersed in that state, and so much so that it's become second nature. We don't even notice it as something that's detrimental to our health, that is detrimental to our mental and spiritual well-being. It feels so natural and normal that we might even consider it as some sort of kind of like a fun park. Oh, life is amazing, and you can all do these things, and then you can go there and you can go there. We're not even realizing what's at the root of that, this constant hunger for going there, searching something, constantly being discontented, we can say it like that, being not at ease. Because as soon as you take out the fun and play, people suffer immediately. Just having to sit in a room by themselves is for 15 minutes doing nothing is already considered a threat to many, many people. They feel overwhelmed by the idea of just doing nothing, sitting for 15 minutes, just being alone with myself. But what am I supposed to do with this? And so realizing the suffering that we carry within ourselves requires some still introspection. We have to learn to become still and actually look. That's what many people don't do. They say, yeah, but I can play here and I can distract myself there. Life is fun. Everything's great. I have my distractions. I have my phone. I have my apps. I have my friends. I have everything. They don't even realize that when all that thing would not be there, then the suffering would come and say hello. And it does that for all of us. And this is usually one of the first things that you will realize on any meditation retreat, or any time when you try to meditate, you realize just how active the mind is and how much nervous energy there is and how unhappy we actually are deep down inside. But as long as we're distracted, of course, sure, we're not seeing it. A life will appear fun and entertaining and exciting and all that. So first of all, before compassion can even dawn, we have to truly comprehend suffering. We have to see it deeply within ourselves, not within others. The point is you want to see it within yourself. And then the compassionate action would be to free yourself from that suffering, which means that you have to let go of escapism and sit down and become quiet and face yourself. And face the stuff that's going on in there, and look and help yourself to heal through it. Only through that process will you become beneficial to others. And that is nothing that you do to others. It is something that you undo within yourself, which makes you can say, kind of like a gift to others. It turns you into a medicine. It turns you into a light in darkness. So I'm becoming a little bit poetic here, but I like that. So it kind of describes it nicely. So you want to turn yourself into a light rather than operating from darkness, trying to switch on the light of others, benefiting others, trying to get out there, making others happy. There's so many people who tell me all the time, Tobi, I'm so kind to other people always, except for myself. I'm not kind to myself. So the kindness that we show other people is sort of an act very often. It's kind of like a business deal. We're kind to others so that they keep liking us. We're kind to others so that we keep something intact, like the game that we play with others and so forth. All that is a phase of suffering. True kindness begins with yourself. True compassion begins with yourself. Truly benefiting others begins with yourself. So that's all that comes to mind for this episode. I hope it was beneficial. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you got something out of it, and that it helps you to turn the light around and see yourself and start working on the beautiful presence that you can share with the world. And well, I leave you now at it for this week, and see you again next Wednesday. Looking forward to it. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.